Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news, January 31st, wage statement deadline reminder for employers. But first, an attempt at a joke. I apologize in advance. I've heard it said that attempting to grow a business will not be easy, often being told there will be hell to pay. But I'm not worried, not this year at least, because I already paid my taxes. IR 2022-15, January 19th, 2022, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today urged employers to be aware of the January deadline to file Forms W-2 and other wage statements. Filing these documents timely helps employers avoid penalties and helps the IRS in fraud prevention. So obviously it's this point in time, we got to take care of the payroll obligations and so on with the W-2s, the W-3s, the 941s, the 940. It is something that you want to make sure that you're on top of and aware of and paying the taxes that are related to payroll, because it is one of those things that if there's a problem later on, it can be a little bit more burdensome to try to fix something later on than some other types of problems. Therefore, I typically think of the payroll as one of those things where you want to measure twice and cut once, as opposed to one of those types of things that you might just practice with and tinker with until you get to the right point about it, until you figure the puzzle out. Because if something goes wrong, it takes a lot more time and effort and whatnot to fix what went wrong. Also, just realize that, of course, if there's any kind of lawsuit or any kind of problem like that, you're most likely from it to be coming from an employee. So you want to make sure that you're in compliance with all the human resources obligations as much as possible in that instance, or if that situation were to occur as well. So in any case, a 2015 law made it a permanent requirement that employers file copies of their Form W-2 wage and tax statement and Form W-3 transmitted of wage and tax statements. There's the links to those items here with the Social Security Administration by January 31st. So obviously the IRS is not concerned with the employees here. They're concerned with getting their money, and they want these forms to be given to them, because that means that they can double check that the money that you're paying to your employees, if you get a deduction on it, then they want to be able to get the money from the people that you paid the money to, because it's going to be income to them. Obviously, the government has leverage over the employer, because the employer is the one that has something to lose with regards to the deduction that they want to take for the wages. And therefore, there's this requirement for us to do the reporting requirement and so on and so forth with it. So there's some links to the W-2 and the W-3 here. Form W-2 are normally due to workers by January 31st. Forms 1099 Miscellaneous Information Form, there's a link to that here, and Form 1099 NEC, Non-Employee Compensation. Remember that Form 1099 NEC is a bit newer of a form, and it's a really common form that's going to be used. So make sure that you're picking up the proper form for the 1099 forms. They're also due to taxpayers by January 31st. Various other due dates related to Form 1099 Miscellaneous and 1099 NEC, including dates due to the IRS, can be found on the form's instructions at IRS.gov. So if you have questions about it, look up the forms in the instructions, and there's a link to that here as well. Fraud detection. The normal January filing date for wage statements means that the IRS can more easily detect refund fraud by verifying income that individuals report on their tax return. Employers can help support that process and avoid penalties by filing the forms on time and without errors. So again, obviously they're making you file the report so that they can check the income to the people that you are paying, having leverage over you because you're the one that gets the deduction, and therefore they could say, give me these forms if you want the deductions, so that we can go make sure that income is being reported properly by whoever you paid in the income side of the transaction. So the IRS and SSA encourage all employers to e-file. It is the quickest, most accurate, and convenient way to file these forms. For more information about e-filing Form W-2 and a link to the SSA's Business Services online website, visit the SSA's Employer W-2 filing instructions and information website at ssa.gov/employer. There's a link to that here. Use some employer identification number on all forms. Use the same employer identification number on all forms. Employers should ensure the employer identification number, the EIN, on their wage and tax statement, Form W-2, W-3, etc., and their payroll tax returns, Forms 941, 943, 944, etc. Match the EIN the IRS assigned to their business. They should not use their Social Security number, the SSN, or Individual Tax Identification Number, the ITIN, on forms that ask for an EIN, because it's an employee form or an employer form, so you should have the employer identification number if you are dealing with employees, and possibly even if you don't have employees and you're issuing 1099s. So if an employer used an EIN, including a prior year owner's EIN, on their payroll tax returns that's different from the EIN reported on their W-3, they should review general instructions for Form W-2 and W-3, Box H, other EIN used this year. Filing these forms with inconsistent EINs or using another business's EIN may result in penalties and delays in processing an employer's return. Even if an employer uses a third-party payer, such as Certified Professional Employer Organization, Professional Employer Organization, or the third party or other third party, or a different entity within their business to file these documents, the name and EIN on all statements and forms filed must be consistent and exactly match the EIN the IRS assigned to their business. For more information on third-party arrangements, see Publication 15, Employer's Tax Guide. There's a link to that here. Extensions. Employers may request a 30-day extension to file Form W-2 by submitting a complete application on Form 8809, Application for Extension of Time to File Information Returns. There's a link to that here by January 31st. However, one of the criteria in Section 7 of Form 8809 must be met for the extension to be granted. Filing Form 8809 does not extend the due date for furnishing wage statements to employees. Separate extension of time to furnish Form W-2 to employees must be filed by January 31st. See Extension of Time to Furnish Form W-2 to Employees for more information. There's a link to that here. Additional information can be found on the Instructions Form W-2 and W-3. There's a link to that here. And the Information Return Penalties page on IRS.gov. There's a link to that here. And there's a link to all this stuff that I said there was a link to. And there'll be a link to this in the description.